Hola, bon dia, Munson here with the Good Morning Portugal show from expatsportugal.com. How are you? On what would ordinarily be our Consumer Tuesday, but it seems like that's a bit of a not quite right or appropriate title for today's conversation with the Rev Em McGowan. Who'll be joining me in just a moment. And of course, as well on a Tuesday, on the fourth Tuesday of the month, we normally have Spartan FX's Ben or Sarah joining me for a quick chat about foreign exchange and moving big amounts of money around. And I'm seeing a snowy effect on my screen, which do not be alarmed. It's not snowing in Portugal. It's just my green screen playing up as it does sometimes. No sound, or is it just me, says Louise. That always is very worrying. Em is in the green room. Can you hear me all right, Em? She can. She's nodding her head in the background there, and no one else is reporting that as yet, Louise. But we'll wait and see. That's a chilling moment when I hear that. Yes, Spartan FX usually here on the fourth Tuesday of the month. Consumer Tuesday is for worms. Okay. Well, yes, that's a nice way of linking these things together that we're talking about, Stephen. Always looking on the bright side of life and death, of course, this morning when we have our conversation about living fearlessly and dying fearlessly as well. But just back to Spartan Effects for a moment, and I'd like to tell you that rather than having a chat this morning with Sarah or Ben, what we're going to do is have a webinar on Thursday evening, our customary webinar on a Thursday, Portugal Calling, of course, where me, Astrid and Jerry, or a combination thereof, bring a whole bunch of people onto the screen to talk about something important to do with moving from wherever you are in the world to Portugal. Sometimes it's aimed at people who are already in Portugal, or it meets with both sets of needs there. And on this Thursday, 7:30 till 9, what you need to know about moving money to and from Portugal, moving your local currency into euros. If you are in a different currency, much easier, right? One of the benefits of the EU super bloc, if everyone's using in the same currency. But if you're not, if you're coming from the States, if you're coming from the UK, and we're talking about big amounts of money, aren't we? If you're buying a house, you want to be doing that right. You want to get the best exchange rate, and you want to do that safely with a reputable and trustworthy company, who would be Spartan FX. And Sarah will be joining me on Thursday for that webinar, regardless of the amount. It says here, look, learn how to get the best deal. So join us on Thursday for that. RSVP on the expatsportugal.com website. So let's say hello to the Rev Em McGowan, short for Reverend. Hello, Em. How are you?
Hello. All good. All good.
Good
morning.
Revved up this morning. Sorry for that.
Rev Em, exactly. Just like my name. Rev Em
yes,
up.
Indeed. Yep. And where are you in Portugal this morning?
Here in Viseu, just on the outskirts in Satao.
Okay, because not many people know about Viseu up there, beyond Viseu, beyond. It does sound very French, doesn't it? Beyond Coimbra, of course, heading over to Castelo Branco, very interesting part of Portugal. And I think quite a few people heading over that way are living a homesteader sort of life, which I think you might be as well, right?
Yeah, I live off grid up here. It's really quite an easy place to get to when you're driving through from Spain. And here we are, just not far off the A23, I do believe. And we live in the middle of two little villages in just totally off grid, surrounded by forest. We've got a lovely river at the bottom. The people are just amazing, the most friendly, lovely, warming people ever. They just keep coming up with potatoes. We live off grid. The A25, thank you. and we grow our own potatoes, but they keep giving us potatoes. We have 60 eggs a week off our birds, and somehow we still get eggs delivered, but we just say like obrigada. Isn't it beautiful?
It's amazing, and beautiful to view with the eyes, and beautiful in terms of the generosity of the people there, obviously, from Gemini Bradshaw this morning. Let's see who else is saying hello this morning. Lovely to have comments and greetings from all over the world. Back to Gemini, who was first in this morning with a good morning, everyone. Bon dia from Stephen Wells, who made the worm comment as well. I think it is just you, Louise. Don't do that to me first thing in the morning. Bon dia to us. Hope you're well, Louise, and that your visitors are having a super time. Hope all are well, says Ian Turner. Hey, Ian. Weather beginning to change for the better today in the UK, so have a great one. You too. Nice to hear that in the UK. It's been a bit blustery and rainy over there. Hola, bon dia from a surprisingly bright Hampshire. All the UK people are a bit surprised by their good weather this morning. Coda 9 Hill, bon dia, tudo bem? Sim, tudo. Thank you very much. Obrigado, Coda 9. How are you getting on with the language, Em?
Oh,
yeah. Shake of the head.
I love the language. I've not got my head round it yet, and there's not been anyone to practice with, because we get obrigada, hola, bon dia, bon tarde, and then I know the animals. I'm getting good with like farm stuff,
need to know basis, right? Of course.
But unfortunately, I want to be able to practice, learn, and it's so difficult because there's no one really to practice with. So, if anyone wants to practice Portuguese,
we will be changing that. Yes, no, we'll go to our forum. Put a message up in the expatsportugal.com forum. Anybody want to do a Zoom call and practice a bit of Portuguese? I'm sure you'll get takers for that. So you're right. It's all about the immersion and the practice, isn't it? Mike Campion, bon dia from a very wet Maastricht. The wet weather's moved from the UK to mainland Europe, and it's Consumer Tuesday for the worms. We'll come back to that comment. He's right, isn't he? We can hear you loud and clear, says Gemini. Thank you for that, Gemini. Can hear you fine all the way from Hawaii. That is loud, if not clear. That's lovely, isn't it? So Cindy tuned in from Hawaii this morning, and in Poland, Barbara from Katowice this morning. Base Orbit. I wonder what YouTube channel that would be about. Is that a musical thing, I wonder? Bon dia from Colorado, USA. Oh, it's Joey H, everybody, at Base Orbit in Colorado, USA today. Bon dia from Joel, who, Vizio, as he was telling us, as it is on the A25. Very good. We'll always trust Joel for that sort of information.
Yes.
Hola, bon dia todos from Paul and Louise. Thank you for the pictures of your veg patch last night on the gardening Q&A. Rizal, lovely blog yesterday. Beautiful photo of you, Rizal. Bon dia, alegria a todos. She says, igualmente. And yes, Vizio is beautiful, Gemini. Are you over that way? Or how do you know it? I love them.
Thank you.
Ho'oponopono videos. It was
Ho'oponopono.
That's what I said, isn't it?
Okay.
It was amazing how I came across the channel and I was looking for something completely different. It was meant to be, says Louise. We like it when that happens, don't we? Peggy Littrell, bon dia, Prosecco, Peggy in the house. Lots of love to you, Peggy. So sorry to hear of your recent news. All our love from the community here, Peggy. Prosecco, Peggy is here, everybody. It was just me with the sound, just the pesky kids or the janitor or something like that in a Scooby-Doo style there, Louise. Doing the A25 up to Vizio has nice views. It does, doesn't it, across the wide open country there. Alethea Kokotosh, bon dia from Cape Town this morning. Check this out, Em. Lovely audience in for you today. Blown away. Dear, look, maybe she was blown away, but maybe I've blown it. Blown away by the fact that you pronounced my name perfectly yesterday. I wonder if I did it right today. Alethea Kokotosh. Louise saying Em's reaction to the language question is exactly the same as mine. First of all, she said nothing. She just shook her head in a kind of I'm doing my I need somebody to practice with. I'd practice with you, but it'd be the blind leading the blind, says Louise. Maybe you need Philomena in the mix there as well. Or Mia, who will be here on Friday. Mia Girish will be here on Friday. Good morning to my beautiful partner, Em, from a rainy Manchester. How lovely is that? Is that
beautiful?
What Hi,
Sai. He's in the UK at the moment. He's
Yeah,
back in Manchester, rainy Manchester. We love you, but we prefer Portugal.
yeah, it has to be said, Si.
Our
Sorry,
hearts in Portugal.
it's a hands down winner, isn't it? Like, where do you want to be this morning? Rainy Manchester or sunny Viseu? Okay, but Si, someone's got to be over there doing what you're doing, I'm sure. And is this what your place is called, the Ahimsa Food Forest?
Yeah.
Tell us about that then, before we get started, before we talk about living and dying fearlessly, Em.
Well, we are living fearlessly. I had a stroke back in 2017. I lost my sight. I lost the ability to walk. I was really quite rough, and I was a bit stuck. It was a bit of a rough time of life, and I decided to start living, and I wanted to heal. I wanted to do that, and it's really hard to do that in the middle of a town, in the middle of Manchester, with all what's going on. And you know, me and Si went tripping about in our van, and went touring, and we came to Portugal, and then we came back to Portugal, and we drove from Scotland to Portugal, and then we drove back up to Scotland, and then did the tour of Scotland, and then went back to Portugal again. And we thought, you know what, we really love it there. And then accidentally on I don't want to do something wrong and say somewhere when I shouldn't do. So we found yeah, foot in mouth, just surgically get it removed.
Yeah, you stop yourself.
I don't want to be in trouble off your car. I don't want to be in trouble. It's not even dinner time. But you know, we found this property, and we bought it, and we moved on. So we found it in August, moved on it in September, finished paying for it in December because of waiting for the notaries. And I've now got my sight back. I've now got my health back. I can now walk. I can breathe. I can lift. I can do all these things that I couldn't do before because I was way too ill. Portugal given me my life back. Living off grid's given me my life back. It gives me that time, that space, that energy. It's, yeah, I couldn't, fault it. So here we are living on a permaculture project that used to be a permaculture project. We bought it. It's still kind of a permaculture project. We aim for zero waste. We grow our own food, what we can, because we've only been here a short while, like 2 years. And we're just like looking after the ground and being part of community. And it's just amazing here. So thank you, Portugal, because it's awesome.
It absolutely sounds it. A few things are rising in my mind to talk to you about what you've just said there. I mean, first of all, there aren't many people, are there, who recovering from a stroke would go and live off grid in the middle of nowhere in Portugal?
I'm special.
You clearly are. You clearly are. I mean, full marks on your recovery, says Mark over in Australia. First Australian, I think, in this morning. You are. I mean, you are. We use this phrase quite a lot on this show. Living the dream. We talk to people who are living inspiring lives, like you're describing there. And it's like from a nightmare, really. Let's face it. From a human.
I was really low. I was
Yeah.
dancing with death, and I was told if I didn't take the medication, I was going to die and it wouldn't be long and all that kind of thing. And I was like, I don't want the medication. I want to be able to do this naturally, and doctors are great. They're there for a reason, and if my guts are falling out and stuff like that, get me to a hospital. But, when it comes down to it, like, I needed to heal. I needed to be back into nature. I needed to get that connection. And that's what I've done. Like, look, my hands work and everything. I couldn't even write. I couldn't open a bottle of water. I was like, and I walked like I'd been drunk because it was my cerebella that the stroke hit. So that just completely affected me so badly, So I can now walk perfectly well. I don't use a stick to walk. I had to walk. I had photophobia severe, which meant that I had to be trained to walk with a cane, with the ball on the end.
Yeah.
So it's like, I don't agree with like the doctors can give you a diagnosis, not a prognosis, and it's our attitudes and what we want to do with our lives and where we want to be. Like, what do we want to be able to share with the world while we still got a chance, you know?
Yes.
Do I want to sit here and feel sorry for myself? I can't do this, you know, woe is me. Or do I want to get up and do something positive? So I did something positive, and that's what I'm about. I help people be positive and live their positive lives while they can. Because let's face it, who knows what's going to happen today? You know, today I may get hit by lightning. I doubt I'll get run over by a bus that here, but you know what I mean? Who knows what's going to happen? No one knows. The day I had my stroke, I woke up and I couldn't move because I'd had my stroke in the night. So I woke up, I couldn't move, and I was like, okay, I can't move. This is a bit weird, like, but I'll wait a bit and wait a bit. And then I thought, well, what can I do about that? And I got tried to get my phone, but couldn't move to get my phone. I was like, this is really weird. It's like, what's going on? And then I managed to somehow like lean enough to get my phone. And I was just having to sit and think and like work out what to do. Luckily, my friend's a paramedic, and she came round and sorted me out and sent me to hospital, you know?
Wow.
It's like, but yeah, seriously, you know, I was 37 when I had my stroke. I'm 40 now. It's attitude. It's our loving, you know, we've got the opportunity. The whole world will change with just our thought, you know? And that's what my Ho'oponopono is about. It's helping people see that just one thought, one positive thought can change your entire life. You know, it can change the day. It just ripples out. It's beautiful.
You are giving me tingles here, and I suspect many other people as well listening to that. I'm tearing up. I'm tingling all over. This is absolutely amazing, and I'm sure Sai was instrumental and part of your recovery. I could see the love coming in from Manchester, and right back at him from you in Portugal this morning. And what an amazing journey you've had, obviously before the stroke, but since the stroke. And I take on board fully what you say, you know, that the wonderful medics who help you out in an emergency situation can't be with you for the rest of your life, can they? They kind of fix you up and you're on your own in many ways. And you have a very special attitude to that, which we're hoping to find out more about this morning. We'll come back to some more comments now. Gorgeous Algarve as usual. Good. Yeah, it sounds like a lovely morning in the Algarve there, Peggy. Sipping on Prosecco, as you probably are. Bon dia todos from Jersey in New Jersey. Base Orbit. Yes, you nailed it. Base Orbit is my DJ name. Will Thompson, morning, Carl. Were you in my hometown yesterday, Obidosh Castle? I was. Homeschooling with the kids. What a fantastic classroom Obidosh Castle is. But taking 3 kids under 10 to a castle is probably not a great idea. But this is, I mean, we've showed this comment before, but absolutely right from Mark. Full marks on your recovery. Well done. Remarkable recovery from Mike Campion. And one of the key reasons to move to Portugal is for the work-life balance and health benefits. Cannot wait, says Mike. And sorry to laugh, Em, when you said I'm unlikely to be hit by a bus. But it is one of the benefits of off-grid living and a poor public transport out in the middle of nowhere, isn't it?
Yes, absolutely.
Em's healing story is amazing. I've heard that Portugal is the land of healing. Now, tell us more. What does Louise mean by that, and why do you so heartily agree?
I was told the story, and it was only a few days ago, about Portugal. There's some place that's believed, and I didn't know this until a few days ago, that Portugal's where the Holy Grail actually ended up. And many, 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 many moons ago, people came over to Portugal to heal, and that's how it happened. There was a lot of people that came, you know, to Portugal and healed, and a lot of the healers came to Portugal to heal others, you know, and they all lived in some kind of castle or temple or something or other.
With the night, this is around the Knights Templar, not concept, but history, I guess.
I'm
As
not
well.
sure, to be quite honest. I'd have to like find out again, and like and hear the story, because you know when you listen to anything you only pick up so much of it and
Yeah.
remember it. So it was, to me it was like, okay, Portugal, it's meant to be something of the grail, something of healing,
Yeah.
and that's the what Portugal means. And I was like, oh, that's really interesting, but you can only take so much information in that one day, and then after that you're a bit stuck.
Well, don't worry, we're here every day, and we'll go into that story more and more because it's an important one. And did you find that out before or after your own healing journey here?
I only found that out a few days ago. We
Really?
came here because our heart was in Portugal. We just
Yeah.
loved Portugal.
And
You
you
know,
had
we toured it in our van. We
yeah.
toured all around the coast. We toured right through the middle. We love Alpedrina, the camping farm there, and all that aloe vera is just like aloe heaven. With Ed and Truce, and it was like, yeah, you know, but we went there for one day and ended up there for a week, like with Ed and Truce at the camping place in Alpedrina. And then when we moved here, we bought a load of aloe. It was like, wow.
Hello to in Visio. This is amazing. Of course, Lisbon is I think a literal translation, or the origins of the word Lisboa is city of light. So there's definitely something in this, what we're talking about this morning: love, light, healing, and so on. And your incredible journey here, which I have to say, I mean, you know, we're talking about death this morning, and I wanted to hear your backstory, if you like. That's a pretty awful way of putting it, but you know, your circumstances in Portugal, what brought you to this point, and it's absolutely amazing to hear of your story this morning. It is very interesting and beautiful, says Barbara in Poland. Totally right, dude, says Dominic Core. I think this is about your orientation to life. Barbara, I agree. M's story is amazing. She's phenomenal. And Jacqueline CDM, my neighbour up the road here. Simple. Well, I think we know what that means, don't we? Love coming over from Jacqueline there. Basil giving me a bit of a lol for my impersonation of his set there. I think Portuguese derived from Port of Grail, as in the Holy Grail. There we go. I knew we would be able to furnish that a bit further here this morning. Before we go any further, and let alone Portuguese pronunciation, you threw in a bit of Hawaiian earlier on there, I think, the comment that came in before.
Ho'oponopono.
Ho'oponopono. Can you please elaborate on that before I ask you about how you became a reverend? Because there's another interesting thing we can talk about this morning before we get onto the death conversation.
It's all linked. The Ho'oponopono, because I'm also a shamanic practitioner. And being that, because to me, a reverend, I'm a reverend of metaphysics. I'm sorry to blend them, but they're just woven. I'm a reverend of metaphysics. I don't believe in one religion. I believe there's one religion, and that's all religions. It's one spirituality. There is no one truth apart from us, really, and our power within ourselves. And the Ho'oponopono originates from Hawaii. It was originally used by the kahunas. The kahunas, believe it or not, is the Hawaiian name for shaman. And a shaman in Hawaii, a kahuna, used to hold reconciliation ceremonies, Ho'oponopono ceremonies. So if anyone had a fallout, they'd sit with them and go, okay, let's listen. Yeah. And such a person would talk and the other person would listen. And then such a person would talk, kind of like what we're doing now. And then we'd come to that connection where we'd be able to say, do you know what? I love you and I'm sorry. Please forgive me. And I thank you, which is the short Ho'opono prayer. And by doing that, we bring people to hear each other and listen and connect with each other and actually see it from their side too, realize that everyone's right, none of us are wrong, we just see it from a different perspective, and we can still love each other anyway.
Wow.
So that's what it is. And then up like the late 1970s, Mona Simeona, who was a kahuna, brought the Hawaiian Ho'oponopono to the West. She basically taught, she'd taken it from the reconciliation ceremony and turned it into Sith Ho'oponopono, which is self-identity through Ho'opono. So what we do is we look at ourselves and we say, I love you, but we're talking to ourselves here. So look in the mirror, look at yourself. I love you. I'm sorry. Please forgive me. I thank you. And we're saying that we love ourselves, and we're saying we're sorry for not always getting ourselves right, you know, and making mistakes. And we're forgiving ourselves for not being perfect, because, you know, we are just human beings. And when we're giving ourselves some gratitude and sharing that love, and that is self-identity through Ho'oponopono. That's what I share.
How wonderful! And I've cut and pasted it onto the screen here this morning, so people can see what you're talking about here. Some will be familiar with it, and I think many people have had a lot of transformation, breakthrough by considering this and thinking, "Hold on a minute, me sorry? Why should I be sorry?" Or forgive? You know, I'm not forgiving. Thank you. You know, what have I got to be thankful for? You know, and all of these rejections and what would they be called? Sort of rebuttals, refusals to engage at this level. But once tried, the most amazing things can happen with just these four ideas, right? Four phrases, really. So there it is. Would you care to read that out for us in a beautiful way, Em?
Yeah, it's affirmations, really, just, you know, or a prayer or an affirmation. You can call it what you like, but you don't have to believe in the words when you first say them. The vibration, the frequency of the words will go through you, and it will work eventually. So you've wrote, short Ho'oponopono cleansing prayer. Oh, infinite divine mind, through my beloved high self, cleanse this unit of all negativity, both within and without, that it may be a perfect vessel for your presence. I am sorry. Please forgive me. Thank you. I love you.
Ooh.
Now, you've got the things in a different order, and I'd like to make sure that people know, that listeners know, there is no wrong order. You can say those 4 affirmations whichever way you like, and it will make absolutely no difference. There's no wrong way to do it. You can say it in whichever way feels right. You trust your gut feeling, you listen to your heart. And if you want to say, I love you, please forgive me, I'm sorry, thank you, or whatever, it's perfectly okay. What you're doing is perfectly right. There is no wrong with Ho'oponopono.
Well, thank you for that this morning. Didn't expect to be encountering the Ho'oponopono, the cleansing prayer this morning, but why not here on the Good Morning Portugal show? Bearders 22. It's amazing what you find out about people, because we kind of live our lives and have our relationships, don't we, at a certain sort of chosen level. I didn't know this about Bearders 22 in our community. Had a heart attack 9 years ago. Scared the hell out of the dentist. I bet it did. We actually in the chair. Sorry to laugh again at that, but yes, that would have been quite a
It's funny, but
yeah, it went away from a routine procedure, didn't it? Within 2 hours, 3 stents at Papworth. I was sitting up in bed having lunch. Our NHS is fantastic. Put my outlook on life, I bet it did, into perspective there. Bearders 22. Wow, thank you for sharing that this morning, Barbara. Do you know what? Me and my Portugal friend have a similar story. We are similar. Amazing friendship. So do you actually know Barbara, or you do now? A new friend?
no idea who Barbara is, but hello, Barbara.
Yes, we did. A new friendship this morning. Louisa's got to go out. I'm so gutted. She says, I have to go out and leave the live. I'll say bye, thank you, and catch the replay. Uttering the affirmation on her way out of the door. Why not there, Louise? Have a great day. And love to Steve and Amy. Let's see. Yes, I've put a lot of comments in myself this morning with the prayer there. Good morning, Portugal, says Susan Casola. And that affirmation is beautiful, says Jacqueline CDM. Made me tear. I don't think you're the only one. I'm with you on that this morning. I've obviously lots to release still. Thank you. Do you think it means that if it tears you up, that there are things that need to be resolved or be made soluble through tears?
Tears are energy, and they're beautiful, and no one should be afraid to cry. And tears are sometimes they're happy, they're sometimes so joyful, there's sometimes so much sadness. And you know what, as they come out, it's just an energy release, and it's just a beautiful energy release.
Yes,
You know,
yes, I'm with you.
sometimes we have these things inside us. There's nothing wrong with letting them out and being true to ourselves. It's when we hold them in, when we hold anything in our lives, we're a bit like a barrel of wine, if you like. It gets filled and filled and filled, but if something doesn't drink some of the wine and it keeps trying to fill it, it's going to explode. So we've got to allow ourselves to cry. We've got to allow ourselves to experience what we need to feel. You know, we've got to be true to ourselves.
Or drink a
And
bit
that's
of wine.
important. And
Yep.
drinking wine's brilliant, because that can also help us release the, you know,
Just
so
extending
many
your
people are honest when they've had a drink, aren't they? And
Oh,
it's the only time that they can be honest, isn't it? Sometimes that
it does
sometimes
happen.
they need that. It's their
Yeah.
tool, you
Yes.
know. But
Yeah.
obviously, anything in excess is not good for the body or soul or spirit.
Well said, Reverend. That's why you're here this morning. It's all about balance. Absolutely right. Absolutely right. But yeah, I was just extending on your metaphor there. You know, if the barrel of wine is getting too full, it obviously needs to be drunk.
Yes.
Jim, a bit late from a grey and gloomy Wiesbaden this morning. Morning, Jim. Sorry, Barbara meant Philomena, my Portuguese friend. Not at all. I think the friendship circle has grown this morning. Hey, man, how cool is that? Positive vibes all around us, says Carlos Victor. Good morning, Carlos. Absolutely. So, yeah, we were going to be talking about, I think the phrase that I picked up on was dying fearlessly and living fearlessly. I mean, clearly, we've talked a lot about the former, which is, or the latter, sorry, there, as in living fearlessly. This amazing journey you've been on, inspirational journey, what you've been through. So, in the first instance, terrifying, and then how you've dealt with it is so beautiful and inspiring for people. But it sounds like, you know, you've really thought you were going to die. You know, it's kind of like a near-death experience, and it's given you a new perspective on death. And furthermore, I think we agree that our culture has a slightly strange view and relationship to death. Dare you say more about that this morning?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm always up to talk about dying. And you know what? It's part of life, and people try and avoid it, right? I'm sorry, but it's going to happen to all of us. I'm sorry to break the news, like, but
It's
there's
good.
none of us going to avoid that. You
No
know,
one, no
it's
one's
going to
getting that up there
happen.
alive, right? Okay, yeah, it's true, isn't it?
And the wonderful thing is, it's not happening right now. We're alive. We can breathe. We can connect to our breath, and you know, we have this moment. And
Yes.
yeah, it might happen, and it might happen regardless of what doctors say to us. And they say you might have whatever. And I was told, like, once I was told I had a few days left to live, and that was before that I had tracking cellulitis after walking Hadrian's Wall in 6 days. And everyone was told to say goodbye, and I was told that I'd either lose my leg or I'd die, and it's like, okay, but I've got 2 legs now and I'm alive. So it's all about realizing that, you know what, we have got the power to make the best of our life as it is today, and we can prepare. So it's not being ignorant to the fact that we are going to die. Let's ignore that, and someone else can deal with it. Do you know what? If we take responsibility, which is what we do with the Ho'oponopono, we take in 100% responsibility for ourselves, no one else. It's about us. And if we can take 100% responsibility and say, do you know what, I'm going to die, and that's okay, because it'll happen one day, it might happen tomorrow, it might happen next week, it might happen next year, it might happen in 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 years, and I'm cool with that, because it's going to happen. I can't avoid it, and I'm going to just be responsible. I'm going to prepare for that the best way I can, not in a morbid way, but in a responsible way. So I'm going to write a letter of love that just says to my family, so a living will, if you like, that while I'm alive, if anything should happen, like I have a stroke or something, that I want to be able to still have someone to have an understanding, like, I don't want to be resuscitated, okay? And that is my belief, that's my personal choice. And if I'm in a vegetative state or something like that, I want to have the choice, you know, and the trust in someone to be able to make that choice to turn off the machine rather than keep me there just because they want me to be there in their lives, you know. And if I'm getting, like, I want to be able to have a say in how, if something happens and I get tracking cellulitis and maybe my legs like chopped off during that time of being ill, I want someone to be able to help me have the best possible quality of life for where I'm at that time. So I want to be able to be respected in what I want. You know, I'm not asking for anything major. I want people to just, especially those important to us, those people we love, you know, I want them to know that I am here. This is my body. It is my choice, you know, and if anything should happen, I have different stages depending on different abilities, capabilities, physical and mental, that I want to be able to maintain. And if I am not able to maintain that, I want to be able to look at what else is available to me in that situation. So what is the best, like, advice I can give them? You know, it's awful when someone is passing and you've got to make that decision. Do we turn off the machine? Do we keep them? What's that? If I've already wrote it down, it's what I want. Don't feel guilty about it. Don't have to sit there and think about it. You don't have to struggle for the next however long worrying about the decision you've made. I've made the decision. It's written there in pen and paper. You know, it's okay. You know, I give you permission to do that. It's fine, you know? And that's what it's about. It's about helping people to live the very best lives in whatever state of mind they're in, whatever health they're in. You know, you could have cancer, or you could have a stroke, or you could have heart disease or anything like that, and you still have a choice. You know, there's so many different things open and available to you where you can change your quality of life just through positive, like, life coaching, you know, or through positive methods, aromatherapy, ho'oponopono. The choices, you know, they're just some of the things that I know about, but the choices out there, there's thousands of choices. There's so much opportunities and possibilities in the world that we can access so that we get the correct palliative care for where we're at. And since I mentioned the word palliative care, you don't have to be dying to need it or to receive it. Palliative care just means the care that you get, right, when you're ill and suffering with a serious illness. It's something that will keep you at a level of comfort where you don't have to feel the pain. You don't have to experience a poor quality of life because you're ill, you know. So palliative care can be aromatherapy. It runs alongside, you know, it can be holistic as well as medical. There is so many things that we can do to improve the quality of life that we have, regardless of our life circumstances at the time. So I hope that's helped make sense for things.
I'm sure it does, and I think that will resonate with people. And I think it puts a finger on, or opens the can of worms that is our current view of death and life, actually, and what's not talked about, as well as what we're beginning to talk about here. I think we're in a really neurotic state in relation to death. But whenever we talk about death, we're also talking about life, of course. I think you made that point earlier on. They are integrally linked. It's and in our own rational minds at the moment, and in the last however many thousands of years of becoming very rational as a species, we've disconnected these things, haven't we? So why are you laughing?
You said that we'd become rational. I think that's really funny. Oh, that's proper tickled me. That has. Thank you.
As you think we've become irrational?
Yeah. What's look back in time, right, and like look at how Brazil, say for instance, has the Day of the Dead. They have a bit more rationality than we do, I think, sometimes, because as much as they think that today is progress, and in some ways today is so progressive compared to the other things, back a while ago, death was something that we all embraced and we celebrated, and we honored people's lives, and we honored the people being birthed into this life, and we honored them as they're being birthed out.
Yeah.
You know, we honor the young, we honor the old. Everything is a part of community. We are a community, we are together. And so much to today's progressive times, people are actually so divided and so separate, and we're not actually, but we feel separate, you know, we feel drawn apart and pulled apart, and we're not actually, because we don't have to be. We don't have to be so apart, but we can honor our lives. We can honor each other. We can turn around. There is nothing wrong with saying to someone, do you know what you've just said there is beautiful, or what you've done there is beautiful, or you've had an amazing impact on me in my lifetime. And especially towards the end of our life, or when we're suffering with issues, we can honor that person and let them know that we love them and we appreciate their impact they've had and the imprint that they've had on our lives, because that has helped make things wonderful. You know, there's so much that we can honor while we're living. We don't have to wait till someone's dead to say, do you know what, that person was wonderful. We can tell someone today, do you know what, you've been amazing, you've been an amazing impact on my life, you've helped me incredibly, do you remember that time when, you know? And that's how we learn to die consciously. We're living consciously and dying consciously, because we're connecting and appreciating and honoring the fact that we are a community, that we
Boom.
are all one.
Excellent. Yes, by rational, what proper tickles you? I love that your Mancunian Turner phrase there for anyone listening in the United States. When Em said, proper tickled me, she was amused by what I said. By rationality, I mean a lack of logic. Actually, I think
thank you for that.
I think we've become illogical. You know, logic is the most beautiful and amazing thing, and we're certainly, as Spock might say, a very illogical species. And I think the process we've gone through is this sort of industrialization, rationalization, where everything is put into a box and a compartment. So, you know, life is in one compartment now, death is in another. And it's lovely to be blurring that edge today. So, as you say, why is it that you suddenly, when somebody's, you think you're going to lose someone, you know, everyone gets on the phone, don't they? Oh, you know, I love you. Sorry, I didn't say this before. Well, why didn't we say that? And I'm as guilty as that of anybody else. I'm not criticizing anybody, but it's just an observation of the human condition, I suppose. And you're breaking that separation down here, Em, and you know, really enjoying having this conversation, as I think other people are this morning. I'm not afraid to die. I just don't want to be there when it happens. That's pretty much Woody Allen. It's pretty much how we all feel about it, right? My dad say that.
We're scared of what we don't know, Carl. We're scared of what we don't know, and you know what? Death can be seen, and has been said by many, to be like taking off a tight shoe. So for those who don't believe that we're going to just go and then that'd be it, we believe that we're more than our body, at which point when we leave it, we're just dropping the body, and we're just still, the energy is still there in its various forms to interact with life, just, you know, in a beautiful different way. So it's, death is a doorway, depending on, you know, what you believe. And different cultures and different societies see it completely different ways. Really? But the Buddhist way is called fearless death. So that's actually originates from Buddhism.
Yes. Okay. So we're picking up clues from around the cultures that have still kept some connection with death as well. I mean, we're so averse to it in our own culture, aren't we? That we can't have. I was going to say we can't have a sensible conversation. We don't even have the conversation, and we're being thanked for that this morning. I'll get to that comment in just a moment. But very wise advices, Dominique, having been through a similar experience, this became very obvious. I saw how my family struggled, and not being able to voice my wishes made it very difficult. That's a really awful. I want to talk more about that, actually, the living will, and actually how possible that is, because it might go against standing legislation, mightn't it?
Well, I've looked into it, Carl.
Oh, okay, cool.
And I'm creating it so that I can do it with people. I've connected with Dying Consciously in the UK. I've done a little bit of a course with them. I've got another one coming up because CPD. I'm loving CPD. I've got plenty of CPD things, and it's all about helping.
That's continuous professional development rather than
correct.
Pulmonary disorder or something along those lines.
It's my professional development.
Of course.
So, and like when people come to me, it's basically as simple as a chat, and we're talking about things, and I'm creating forms so that it goes in alignment with what legislation there is currently in, and it's all about what. It has to be in alignment with not just the legal system, but also the healthcare system. And both the legal and healthcare system in Portugal are very interesting. And there's a lot of information out there, but death doesn't really get talked about, and it hasn't really been put into legislation properly until very recently. So when you're looking at things like that, some of the stuff like regarding funerals and burials, the rules got put as they are as we know them today in the 1830s after the cholera epidemic. Right. Wow. That's when it got decided about where to have cemeteries, but because before that people were just getting like mass graves. So if you didn't really have the money, they kind of chucked you all in together. But if you were rich, you got to be in the church. You could be buried in the cloisters in the church, Yeah. So it all depends and goes back through history, and very much so what one thing can interact and impact another. So yeah, I've looked into, and I'm still looking into, because it takes a lot to look into it. All these things, so that I can make sure that people have got access to exactly what they need to know. And I've got a network of people that I can reach out to for information on so many things, from Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, heart disease, cancer, you name it. Those things that we have to deal with today. Property. Like me and Si, we came over from the UK. We bought land, and we thought, well, if we die, we'll be buried here. You're not allowed to be buried in your own land. So it's not allowed in Portugal. You're only ever allowed to be buried in the cemetery. And did you know that all the cemeteries are public? They're all publicly owned cemeteries.
No, I didn't know that. Okay, so that's interesting, isn't it?
Yeah, so it all interlinks.
It must drop your property value though a little bit if you're buried in the back garden.
No one would know. No concrete here.
Okay, let's talk more about how the interface here, because there are a lot of conflicting influences in this conversation that we're not between you and I, but in the forces and the powers that be, how it works. So life is a bit like a road trip. It's not just about getting to your destination, it's what you do along the way that defines it. Yeah, exactly. It's like, well, it's all very well going from A to B, but what about that place we saw on the way? Yeah, that makes it all magical. Man of reason, Gary Austin there, chipping in with some characteristic wisdom. In the West, we never talk about death until it's about to or has happened. This is the worst and most stressful time to talk about it. Of course it is, and that's why we have an undertaking industry as well, isn't it? There's been professionalized to deal with this moment rather than it being a process beforehand. Therefore, great for you to be covering the subject here. Thank you, Stephen. Appreciate it. Tarlok is here as well. Tarlok Singh. Hello, sir. My working visa Portugal. Please help me. Go to our expatsportugal.com forum, Tarlok, where you will see our business directory and be able to ask the questions of somebody in a similar situation to yourself. Maud Azam is here. Good morning. How are you? We're very well. Very good. Your program continues, Maud Azam. Thank you, Maud. Appreciate that. We're very well here. I'm having a rare conversation publicly about dying and fearless living, fearless dying with the Rev Em McGowan here. We are spirits having a human experience. Sheldon D'Italia says, base orbit there. Some words of wisdom coming in from every angle. Just woke up. Did we already talk about
Morning.
connected during existential crisis? We didn't, David, but thank you for introducing that.
Psychedelics is brilliant. It's really awesome, and there's loads of information about dying and psychedelics over in John Hopkins University at the moment. They're doing some more research, but there was stuff done originally with Roshi Joan Halifax and Ram Dass back in the 1970s. So psychedelics, when you are coming to passing or trying to deal with the crisis, can be, in the correct circumstances with the correct guidance and help, it can be good. Make sure it's legal in your state.
Very good, well said. And yeah, you put your finger on something else very interesting there. The right guidance. I mean, how do we find the right guidance? How would you characterize the right guidance? But maybe that's a big philosophical question.
Well, no, not really. You want to, with anything in life, whenever you need some advice, you want to go to someone who actually knows what they're talking about, who's got experience doing it and is highly well recommended by many people. You don't want to go to some person. It's like all this ayahuasca rubbish that people are coming up with in come to Portugal for ayahuasca. Do you know that's illegal? Right. Do you know you're not supposed to do that? There are places where you can do that. And if you're going to go doing things, anything, if you're going to put anything in your body, even coffee, right, you should know the impacts that the coffee is going to have. Yeah. So if you're going to go deciding to do whatever, please take yourself to somewhere where it's properly done. It's done with the correct guidance, as in the correct elders. Ayahuasca was used by shamans in the Amazon. They didn't just like hand it out to anyone. There was always a reason for it. It was part of their journey. It wasn't done for money. It was done to help someone at that time in their life, and they'd sit there and they'd do it in a responsible manner. Now people are just doing it to make money. That is irresponsible. So we need to take responsibility for ourselves, and we have a duty of care for the people that we serve in our lives. So you need to remember to, please, whatever you do, whatever your choices are, find someone who knows what they're talking about, who is willing to be responsible and take their responsibility for whatever it is that they're doing.
So if it's an ayahuasca, no, don't worry. You're here. This is how we roll here on Good Morning Portugal. People come here to speak and to have a conversation. But if you're offered like a day workshop in an Airbnb in Castelo Branco for an ayahuasca retreat, you might want to think twice.
Yeah, if someone's coming over, like, Gary, I'll get back to that in a sec, because I'm an energy master and an energy psychologist. But yeah, if someone comes anywhere, like someone comes over from Brazil, there are some people that come over specifically who have got the right training, training and guidance and stuff, and it can be done right, but it's still illegal. Do you really want to chance doing a trip, having a load of police or GNR or whatever whizzing through the door like, hello, that could really ruin your experience. Well, if you're going to do something, you want to be with someone proper. Pardon?
You make a good point about how it comes from a different culture, and it's it may well be a misappropriation and not suited to our natures in the culture we've grown up in, which is something I want to come back to. We do live in our culture. And we're somewhat responsible for it in that way, aren't we? But let's come back to that and a few other things that the cans of worms that we've opened this morning. Let's see if we can tidy those up in any way.
I don't know about tidying them up. The thing with me is you always get an honest answer. So feel free to tell me to shut up at any time.
Not at all. No, certainly not. And that's
always honest.
That was a very rational response to cans of worms. This is the problem. We've put the worms in the cans, and worms need to be free. Scientific fact: energy cannot be destroyed; it can only be transferred or transformed into something else. Says Professor Austin this morning. My mum planned her funeral before she died, including the music. And a lot more people are doing this now, aren't they? And I think you might put this into the category of conscious dying, people taking a responsibility for the process and how they want to be remembered and so on. She had a wicked sense of humour. Wish me luck as you wave me goodbye by Gracie Fields rang out as the coffin went through the curtains. I bet that was a wonderful moment.
That's
Laughter
amazing.
and tears. How lovely. Paul Richards, greetings from San Rafael, late on parade due to Portuguese wine. He was helping that barrel that was fit to burst. Are you saying you can be buried or cremated in Portugal only if you become a citizen? I don't think we're saying that at all. Tell us about the system here.
Can I talk about that?
Of course you can, yeah.
The thing they're saying about what I'd like to explain, right, is you can't get a natural burial in Portugal. There is a specific one that's more of an expat cemetery, if you like. I think it's in Lisbon. Yeah. And there's only one place in the whole of Portugal that does environmental burials in Elvas. You know, for Elvas, it's the only cemetery in Portugal with an environmental certificate. The only thing is you can't have an environmental burial there or a natural burial there because there is still a rule that legislation that was put through in the 1800s that says what can be buried and what can't. So the nearest you'll get to a natural burial if you are buried in Portugal is you can't, like, something that they say is sometimes you're told that you have to be embalmed. A lot of the time that is not correct. People in the UK get embalmed all the time. Over here, you don't have to be embalmed. They have to ask you permission. So if we already are citizens here, if we live here, we are perfectly all right to be buried within the 72 hours. You know, there's only other medical reasons. Say if we were getting sent back to the UK, maybe they'd want to do the embalming. But all that makes a difference. There's so many little bits and pieces that go into this. So you can be, like, we can be buried here if we're citizens. I think you can be buried here anyway. There are temporary graves where you get put in and it's like 3 years, and you can be taken out and cremated after that. There's only a few choices that we have, like in the UK or in America. America has only just passed a law the other day where they now offer human composting. It's amazing. You've got to see the live stream for as the jokes was just like they made your eyes leak, you know. It was just like, and your belly laughs, like the funniest stuff that's ever gone through that American courts. You've seen the smiles on the face talking about human composting and but in the UK,
that is really what happens, isn't it? I mean, that is our, you know, ashes to ashes, dust to dust. I mean, that is the ultimate composting quote in a way, isn't it? But hopefully it's not one of those barrels that you have to keep turning every 2 days, and it's a much
that's not true compost.
No, that's exactly well said. Wow. Okay. Did you want to say more on that? Because what we're getting into here is because we don't want to talk about it as a species, if you like, and certainly with a Western mindset, we might find ourselves in an awkward position. And I have, you know, talked to people who have found themselves in that awkward position where someone close to them has died suddenly, and they are suddenly in a traumatic and bereft situation. And like Stephen says, this is not the best time to be making plans, is it? When you don't know what on earth is going on.
Right. Can I explain grief and bereavement, please, for people that might not know?
Absolutely.
Grief is the loss. So if I really loved my cup and I lost it, I can grieve for my cup, you know? I can grieve for my pets and my life in England. I could have I could have grieved for that. We grieve when we lose something that we're used to. When we're in bereavement, it's for the loss of something that's exceptionally dear to us, and it's the loss of a life that's something that's dear to us, like a dog, like my pet Blue, who I lost in the UK. Well, I didn't lose her, you know, she passed on, it was her time, but I suffered with bereavement after that. And when we lose someone who's close to us, that is also bereavement. So, you know, a child or a relative or a close friend or something, that is bereavement. And that is the difference between grief and bereavement. We grieve for things before we, you know, so when I had a stroke, I grieved for the life I had before the stroke. When we get a serious illness or any kind of diagnosis or anything like that, we grieve for what we've lost, and we're suffering grief. So grief doesn't just come after, you know, it's not a simple or linear a process as simply something passes away and we grieve, you know. So at the time we receive, so even waiting for a diagnosis, you know, you waiting, you know that you're not well and you're waiting for a diagnosis, we're suffering grief in that process. Then finding out that maybe we might die or whatever, you know, we're then suffering grief again. So grief isn't just after we lose something or someone. Grief can happen before that, because it's the loss of something that can be related to something that, you know, we're used to, not a person.
Yeah.
So really, to be able to be in a situation, we want to be able to deal with it and make a situation as manageable as we can. And if like I drop dead today, then poor Si would, thankfully, because I've done what I needed to do, he now knows what I need to do to honour my wishes.
Yeah.
But he wouldn't be having to deal with it in such a stressed out way, because the paperwork's there. You know, you go onto the file and you find it, or you find the video that I made that says, do you know what, this is my living will, this is my dying will, this is what I want to happen to my things that I own, you know, my possessions. And you have two different powers of attorneys for that, depending on where you're at and in the process. So life, it's easier to deal with and prepare for while we're living, rather than while we're doing it in a state of grief. So if I'm feeling good, I'm feeling healthy right now, so now is a good time for me to write that letter of love or to make the arrangements just in case, so that when things aren't so good and I'm not thinking as clearly, that someone can come in and do it on my behalf based on what I've already written there, without having the guilt that goes with it. Because if you have to make that decision to turn off a machine, or to whether to keep the machine on and how long to wait and all that, like, the grief that goes with that, the actual stress process, it's so, and how kind can we be? How much love can we share with people by taking responsibility now while we can, to prevent them having to go through that, you know?
Yes, absolutely. And also, there's something else that comes to mind with, I mean, there's so many strands of conversation here, that I want to talk about with you. But one of them is this idea of grief, and actually how we're in a kind of, I take issue with this idea of pre-diabetes, that because you know, like I think medics say now you're pre-diabetic. We've got a medication for that, and once they just tell me what that means, I understand it. But it's part of this sort of, you know, trying to stop everything before it happens, and there's a pill for everything. So I'm quite suspicious about that. But we kind of have a pre-grief as well, don't we? If we're living in a culture, which I think we are, whereby we're just afraid of dying and afraid of everyone else dying, that affects our quality of life, doesn't it? If we haven't come to terms with it, and we're in a kind of state of pre-grief,
but it causes more grief.
Yes,
you know, because you want to talk to me about pre-diabetes, just for an example, and I go to you, well, actually, I don't want to talk about that. You're going to be fine. It's going to be fine. You'll be all right. You know, we'll just
let's not talk about it.
Put the kettle on and have a cup of tea, right? So that's it's exactly what happens.
Yeah.
You know, I said to, like, when they told me, they said to me, you've got SIN3, it's pre-cancer of the cervix. And I said to them, okay, so I'm going to think about it. And they're like, we want to operate now. And I was like, well, actually, I don't want you to operate, because this is my body, this is my choice. And they're like, but we need you to. And I had to well, I suppose I could have just walked out, but I wanted the information exchange to hear what they have to say to me. So I might want to hear what you've got to say to me about that. But then I want to be able to discuss that and look at every angle possible connected with that. You know, it's not just the diabetes, it's not just the pre-cancer, it's not just the stroke, it's not just the heart disease, it's not just that. There is so much. Everybody, every human being has so many different facets. We're all diamonds. We have so many different angles that you can look at us from. So let's forget about the stroke, the diabetes, the cancer, or whatever, and let's just see how to make the diamond shine right now.
Yeah, amazing. Bearders 22 has got you can come back to the replay on this because we will continue to talk for a bit longer, but have a great day exam invigilating. Back to the
bless you.
Harsh realities of life there.
May I share something about that? When
yes,
it comes to invigilating and exams, I help someone in 6 minutes to get through exams, and I taught them the Ho'oponopono and the pencil. So if you get your pencil and there's a question they're struggling with, they can tap on those words or on that question and say, I love you, I'm sorry, please forgive me, I thank you, as a mantra. And if it still won't come, just move on to the next question. And also to use the side of the hand. This is the karate chop point. It's one of the meridian points.
Yeah.
And what we can do is we can just tap that onto our leg. It's not going to upset anyone or make any noise. And we can just say, I love you, I'm sorry, please forgive me, thank you. And as we're saying, I love you, I'm sorry, please forgive me, thank you, it will just take us back to earth. It takes us back to center. We can think clearly. We can get through the exam without any stress, without any panic attacks.
There you go.
Just think, just keep sharing the love.
Well, absolutely, because otherwise you're in the state of the more familiar state of people in exams. I can't do this. I can't do this. I wish I'd revised more. And you're not resourceful in that state, are you? So that's such a. I feel it again when you were saying it there. I want to come back to the legalities of the living will and whether that works in Portugal. Well, let's catch up with people here. Rich people might have got buried in the church, but for a rich person to enter the kingdom of heaven is as impossible as it is to get a camel through the eye of the well said, Gary. He's a professor and a reverend this morning.
He sounds awesome.
He is awesome,
Gary.
No question about it.
Love it.
According to one of the stories in the Bible. So go ahead, be the richest person in the graveyard. Knock yourself out.
Yeah.
The richest person in the graveyard. Brilliant. Morning all. What a surprise to see Em here today. Go tomorrow, Fee.
Love you.
Yes, we love you, Fee. Good morning. Sorry, I moved on a bit too quickly there. Jacqueline CDM, is there a link for Em, please? I'd love to connect.
I have two websites. I have the peaceofeye.com, which is my talking therapies and holistic website. But I also have specifically, if you're dancing with death right now, if you really want to reach out, even now, this is another thing just to brush on it, another can of worms here, suicide. If you're feeling suicidal, I have been the Samaritan since 2014. You can reach me. soul-to-soul-support.com. There I am. Send me a message anytime, day or night. It's not going to cost you anything other than whatever it takes on your internet to send me the message. Reach out. Let's talk about it. You know, wherever you're at, if you're struggling with a serious illness, be that suicidal tendencies, suicidal thoughts, chronic depression, any kind of chronic illness, serious illness, just reach out. I am one message away. And I will hold space for you, and we can get through it together, because you don't have to be on your own. You don't have to feel alone, because we are community. And that's what I am here for, to serve community, to serve Portugal. I didn't come here to just be me. I came here to be me and love and serve and be part of a community. And that's what we are.
Well, clearly. The peaceofeye.com, and also I've just put in soul-to-soul-support.com. As well in there. That's an amazing offer, and we are we really are going to places that many shows or conversations wouldn't go to this morning. We could call it Taboo Tuesday, couldn't we? My goodness.
Let's have another.
The John Hopkins University studies are really interesting, says David
They
Durham.
are.
I can't risk it, even where it's legal, because I could disqualify my immigration. Good point. Getting back to the practicalities of life, it's important to be aware of that. Well said, David. I want to be composted after this. So there's somebody who wants to
At
be
the
on
moment, my dearest David, as much as you'd like to be composted, it's only available in the USA and certain states. To be composted over here, the only thing that you've got anywhere near to composting that's going to be eco-friendly, the most eco-friendly thing that I can tell you, bearing in mind that the cemeteries are absolutely overcrowded, and this was first talked about in legislation, Portuguese legislation in 2014. So the best thing you can do for the earth is, if you die in Portugal, to get cremated in Portugal and throw your ashes down, because the amazing in your ashes are so many good things for Pachamama, for Mother Nature. You know, just that's the way to go, because there's that many people that just want to be buried, that there's so many things that they put into the making of a coffin, into so many things, into the whole. There's, if you want the information, send me a thing and I'll send you a link, because I'd just talk for all day about that. But to be eco-friendly, the only way to be eco-friendly isn't to go to Fun Elvis, because you can't have an eco burial there either. You can't have a tree or anything like that. You can't be buried with a tree in Portugal. It's you can have a tree somewhere near you, but you know, or you can have a bush kind of near you. That's allowed. But yeah, so to be eco-friendly, the best thing you can do, the kindest thing that you can do, is be cremated. Yeah, and then throw your ashes somewhere where you're going to be able to fertilize the soil.
There you go, David. That's some advice for you this morning. I lost my, going back to your comment before about grief and bereavement, I lost my dog once and bereaved. Yeah, it's interesting, the human mind, how that can work, right? Then the dog turns up and Mrs. Durham hyperventilated. So this is what the human mind can go through, isn't it? It can go through the motions of these things, because that's how our emotions are, isn't it? They can be experienced, whether or not the reality matches what's going on.
When it comes to emotions, our emotions begin in our thoughts, which is our perception of what the universe is and what our life experiences is. So everything begins with a thought, and how we perceive the world, you know. So when we've had, or we know of, because knowing of and experiencing are two different things, but that's how our minds are built. That's how our minds work. They're stored in our prefrontal cortex. Yeah. So what happens is, something happens, it gets stored in our prefrontal cortex, which is our data bank. And then when something else happens in life that is similar to whatever is just risen up, like we have an experience with our dog, it goes straight to our data bank, and our data bank gives us the information we need, which usually then connects with our limbic brain, which is our our survival brain, and that makes, and we're acting in panic. So instead of responding to a situation logically, we're acting from fight and flight, which is illogical. It's just the way that we were to survive back with dinosaurs and saber-toothed tigers. So to be able to learn to be able to deal with our thoughts, we need to be able to change our perception. We need to reframe our thinking about things and realize that, you know what, when some things happen, it isn't always going to be the same. It's just that is the way our brain works, because that is our life experience. And because of the human negativity bias, our brain is more likely to remember all the bad stuff and forget the good stuff. So we'll always go into panic, but it doesn't have to be like that. The more we practice mindfulness and being in the now, the more we can detach and become and link up better with our primal brain and prefrontal cortex, so they work in harmony and work together for the highest good, instead of just like, you know,
separation.
going in between.
Division, separation, absolutely. The human negativity bias. We try and avoid that as much as possible here on the Good Morning Portugal show. You're listening to a conversation between the Reverend Em McGowan and myself, Carl Munson, here from expatsportugal.com, going where very few people dare to go, certainly at around 10 o'clock on a Tuesday morning. Thank you for being here. A few more comments. Patricia Bartram, I saw a sad face from you earlier on. And the human negativity bias is so true, because I get thumbs up and I get hearts. But if I see a sad face or an angry face, I go straight to that in my emojis. And Patricia put one of these up earlier on. And I'm glad to say has added this comment to probably put it into context. About 30 years ago, bought my own plot in the local cemetery. Is that over here in Portugal? I think it is, Patricia. My mother is in there now, and my ashes will be put in the same plot. And as I am 84, I could expect to be able to leave soon. Oh, bless you, Patricia. And I'm not going to give you a platitude of, oh no, don't say that. You know, according to,
I think it's beautiful.
Isn't it beautiful what she's saying
it
there?
Is absolutely, it's sacred. Death is
she
sacred.
Might be right, and she might be wrong. We don't know, but she's making arrangements, and
you've been responsible, and you're helping those that are here now, and you know, amazing.
Thank you, Patricia. An elder showing us the way there. Again, if I may be involved. João Mendonça, bom dia, Carl. If he's just tuned in, he's going to be wondering what on earth is being said. I love the idea of a Viking boat ceremony.
Oh,
Carl.
Lovely.
However, if I'm lucky, I might get a rubber ring floating in the pool holding the can. It's not to say really, Gary, but if that's what you want, I guess that returns.
Unfortunately, as much as that sounds fantastic, the only cremations are allowed in the cremation area, which has to meet the set standards, and there's only 21 crematoriums in Portugal, so we could try and work on something, maybe get something like a small Viking thing to put in underneath your body in your coffin, and then try and work through that as you go into the being cremated. I'm sure we could work on that, but the pool and rubber ring idea, as though that was quite fun, it's just not. GNR won't have that, enough, even
Gary,
though you've made your living will now. It's already on Good Morning Portugal. We can refer it to it if needed. You've got to be
careful what you say, Gary, because now that sounds like that's what you really want. And I did see a really nice pink flamingo rubber ring in LA Up yesterday.
Oh, yeah.
That could be the solution. Patricia says, oh, no, the plot is in the UK. Okay, Patricia. You're in Portugal, though, Patricia, right? And then sorry to be, and I'm, again, I'm anticipating the kind of social mores of our culture. But I'm saying I don't want to pry. But am I right in thinking you are in Portugal? The plot is in the UK, and you have a plan to be repatriated, or your body to be repatriated when the time comes? Because that, again, is part of the conversation we need to have. There are plans that allow for that, and I would urge people, if you feel inspired and open to the conversation we've had this morning, which I think Em and I here believe it to be a good one, to have this level of openness. Please put that in the forum. That will be a good place. Get talking about it, folks, because silence and secrets they're toxic. Let's face it.
Fear.
Yeah, it causes fear, and that's not good for us. So just finally then, if we do wrap up here, the legalities as you know them, you think a living will is an okay document in Portuguese, the eyes of the Portuguese law?
Yeah, a living will, it just helps people know what you want. I want to try and create something like that, what the Lions have done in the UK, so that you always have it somewhere like in your fridge, and you have a little sticker on your door, so that if anything happens, the ambulance people know to come to your house. They see the stickers on the door, they know to go to the fridge. You'll have a little bottle in there, and that will have everything in there that they need to know. So it helps. It works alongside the legal system, it works alongside the healthcare system, and it helps you get what you need. And it's that extra little bit of safety, that's what I'm going to aim for.
It's also a very good daily reminder of your mortality. Every time you go in your house and every time you make a cup of tea, it's like No, it's fine. I'm just kidding. You know, it's right. I mean, there is no harm in being reminded of our mortality.
But
We
we
have.
may not die at the time, but if we were really ill and we was, say, had a stroke or something, that information they need is available to them in the fridge.
Absolutely. And when your friends come round to make a cup of tea, say, no, not that bottle.
Not that one.
Okay. It's been fascinating talking to you. And
Thank you so much.
yeah, we kind of opened up hopefully a space to talk about your death and life, because as we said before, you know, they are inextricably linked, and there is a growing, I think, death consciousness or conscious dying movement around the world. I think it's amazing. I see that, you know, elders in Scandinavia taking part in, like, getting their affairs in order, which always sounds like a terrible thing, but there are not in the medical sense, but there are oldies, I think, in Scandinavia, that there's this trend of like getting rid of all your stuff so you can live lightly and freely for the last part of your life and not lumber your relatives with all those things.
Yeah, but do that today. You know, do it today. You don't have to carry all that weight. Just let it go.
Let it go. Let it go. Okay. In Canada, the info was on my driver's license to have my body donated to scientific research. Yeah, that's not going to work for Gary on the Portuguese driving license card. A photo of the pink flamingo. Don't even think to see the option available in Finland. My will says cremation. So Susan's obviously thought about it as well. And Jonesy says new meaning. Message in a bottle.
Well, when you hear that song anytime now,
yes, that's right.
You know, let it be a reminder. Let's be responsible about this.
So over to you, Reverend. We've been talking about life and death this morning. Presumably, you can close for us on a high note and with a bit of a blessing of some sort.
Well, today, live your life for you. Take 100% responsibility for you. I love you. Please forgive me. I'm sorry. I thank you.
Beautiful. Thank you, Rev Em McGowan. Great to meet you. Great to have you on the show. Come again soon. Ciao, ciao.
Yeah,
bye for now.
anytime.
Have a great day, everybody. Bye for now.